Hey everyone, great to connect with you again today. This Sunday is our regular schedule of worship at 8:30 and 11. 11 o'clock service will be streamed. And Kids Connect, Youth Sunday School, and Adult Discipleship at 9:45. This Sunday I'm going to look at another metaphor for the church based on the Apostle Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 12. In Bonnie Christian's new book, Untrustworthy, she tells of an incident that took place in 1736. The incident revolves around Benjamin Franklin, who was chosen to be the clerk of the Pennsylvania legislature, a selection he said no one opposed. The next year, however, a new legislator made a long speech against him, proposing another candidate for the job. Well, Franklin prevailed in the vote, but as he wrote later, he did not like the opposition of this new member, who was likely to carry great influence against Franklin. But instead of becoming bitter about the man's opposition, Franklin determined to win the lawmaker over to his side. His method was counterintuitive. Instead of trying to ingratiate himself by doing his enemy a favor, he asked his enemy to do a favor for him. In his autobiography, Franklin relates what happens. Having heard that he had in his library a certain very scarce and curious book, I wrote a note to him, expressing my desire of perusing that book and requesting he would do me the favor of lending it to me for a few days. He sent it immediately, and I returned it in about a week with another note expressing strongly my sense of the favor. When we next met in the house, he spoke to me, which he had never done before, and with great civility. And he ever after had manifested a readiness to serve me on all occasions, so that we became great friends, and our friendship continued to his death. This is another instance, Franklin writes, of the truth of an old maxim I had learned, which says, "He that has once done you a kindness will be more ready to do you another than he whom you yourself have obliged." And when I read that, it grabbed me. As Christian says, it's so counterintuitive to how we think things get done. We're used to winning battles by fighting fire with fire. We're so used to a world in which you can never admit a need, a world in which we never want to be in a position of someone having done a favor for us. It feels like weakness. It feels vulnerable. It feels like a loss of control. And it probably is all of that. But it's still the best way. Now, she reminds us, this can't purely be a calculated move. It's not just a strategy. If you ask for this help, you must be truly ready to receive it. You must be truly prepared to learn about the log in your own eye, to discover some hypocrisy in your own intellectual life or excess in your own behavior. You're asking other people to do your favor to help you and mean it. And she goes on to say, neither does it mean accepting every suggestion without question. But there should be truth to the respect you signal, a real willingness to accept the other's advice and help, just as you're hoping she'll accept yours. Anything less will corrupt you before it corrects your friend. When I read all of this, I couldn't help but think of Romans 12 and of Paul's quotation of Proverbs 25. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Now, we might be confused by the mention of burning coals on his head and think that this is a way of sticking it to our enemies. But this can't be Paul's point. After all, he begins Romans 12 by admonishing the church to offer their bodies as living sacrifices and to no longer conform to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of their minds into the image of Christ. And then a few verses later, he says, love must be sincere. Bless those who persecute you. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Do not take revenge, but leave that to God. And it's only after all of this that he quotes the proverb. Paul isn't telling us to use kindness as a means of beating our enemies and causing them harm, but as a means of helping them experience the love of Jesus. Perhaps the Message says it best. Your generosity will surprise him with goodness. And sometimes the generosity we express isn't what we do for others, but it's what we ask them to do for us. It's asking others to help us. It's asking others to teach us. It's asking others to give us their expertise and their input and even their opinion, and to truly mean it when we say thank you, to take it seriously. You know, it's not easy to act or to think counterintuitively. And yet, this is the nature of the kingdom because it's the nature of God. For if we can step back from the hurt and the pain we feel, we realize that God never asks us to do anything that he hasn't already done and isn't continually doing for us. After all, Paul also writes that God has reconciled us with himself so that we might be ambassadors, agents of his reconciliation with others. And when we see it this way, the calling isn't so much a burden as a privilege. Father, in the difficult times of life, give us wisdom and courage and much grace to act toward others as you act toward us. Amen. Thanks again for joining me. Have a wonderful day.